Hello, everybody, and welcome to another stream of Tabletop Reviews brought to you by Tabletop Junkie. And today we are going to be speaking and reviewing Call of Cthulhu, the Keeper's Rulebook. And now today we are reviewing this first because for the Keepers, because this is kind of like the the rulebook and the Investigator's Handbook are kind of like similar. They do have similar, but they do have differences. We're going to cover the Keeper's Rulebook first. First, the Keeper's Rulebook is actually very important to have if you're going to be running um, a Call of Cthulhu game. It does start off with an overview of the game, example play for the Keeper, who is actually the game master or the dungeon master in comparison. Examples play of what the Keeper will know on how to run a successful Call of Cthulhu game. Call of Cthulhu is set in the universe of H.P. Lovecraft's work, as well as the Cthulhu mythos that he invented from his work. So once again, the book covers an overview of the game, examples play, and what you need to play, as well as it does cover Howard Philip Lovecraft himself, a little bit of a biography about him, as well as the Cthulhu mythos. There is also a chapter devoted to helping generate investigators, what the numbers mean, sample occupations, and so on and so forth. Plus, it even has value charts. Because Call of Cthulhu uses percentile dice, it does have numbers ranging from 0 to 100, as well as there is a quick reference chart for 1/2 values and 5th values. The 1/2 values are for hard successes, the 5th values are for extreme successes, and anything below extreme success is considered a critical success. Anything above those numbers are considered fails, and anything between 96 and 100 is considered fumbles, depending on the situation. Most of the times, as a GM and running Call of Cthulhu, I normally just say 100 is a complete fumble. It also comes with a complete set of skills, skill list for you, as well as skill rolls, bonus and penalty dice, and explaining what those are. Bonus and penalty dice are things that are awarded are not really awarded or consequential to the players. Whenever a GM tells them that you need to roll penalty dice, that means they need to roll 2 sets of percentiles and take the highest number. When they have a bonus dice, they roll, once again, they roll 2 percentile dice and take the lowest number. I believe that is how that works. Or they just roll the tens dice and they take the lowest number. So if you get a 90 on one and a 50 on the other, you take the 50 and then you roll the singles separate. And you compare. So basically, you roll 2 tens dice, which is what we call it here in Call of Cthulhu, and you take the lowest number, and then your D10, you just compare that to whatever the lowest tens value is. Same with penalty dice. You take the highest one in the opposite direction. It is the rule set is very easy to learn. It is not that hard. I like to use it mostly for cinematic purposes, and I definitely don't like making my players roll all the time for every little thing. But if a roll is necessary, I do make them roll. So, and we are calling, in case I didn't mention in the beginning of the video, we are covering 7th edition. We also have combat, what combat round is, using melee weapons, fighting maneuvers, armor, firearms, wounds and healing, and sample of poisons, which I believe is also covered in the Investigator's Handbook. We also talk about chases, establishing a chase, the round of a chase, which is usually about 3 rounds. Now, what is covered outside of the Investigator's book is what we're actually about to talk about. That is covered in the Keeper's Guide. We talk about sanity. Okay, sanity is an important mechanic in Call of Cthulhu because that's exactly what Call of Cthulhu is really about. Usually, it's about a team of investigators are investigating a serious horror beyond their imagination. So sanity is a very important mechanic. You either die as a hero or you go insane. You don't really live. I like to explain it like this. Call of Cthulhu is not a game meant to be won or every scenario meant to be won. You just do it maybe a little better or a little worse each time. Depending on what situation you go into, eventually your character will be subdued to complete insanity. In here, we actually have a bit. We They do discuss a bit more about how insanity works, sample of phobias and manias, and they even have charts for you. They even talk about treatment and recovery from insanity, which also does not happen very often, but does happen, and you do have to pay for it. Getting used to awfulness, basically. We do actually also cover in the Keeper's Rulebook stuff about magic. There is examples of Mythos tomes using magic, learning spells, and becoming a believer. And then it talks about new keepers. There is a section for new keepers, people who have never run Call of Cthulhu before, non-player characters, rolling dice, the ideas of roles, perception roles, using the rules, and so on and so forth, as well as creating scenarios and playing the game. That is a whole section of a chapter that is actually pretty much a good chunk of this book. It even has a sections for tomes of Eldritch lore, using mythotomes such as the Necronomicon and others. And then it talks about grimoires. It has examples of spells, deeper magic, and the grimoire, as well as artifacts and alien devices. But it doesn't stop there. It goes deeper. There is even a small bestiary in this, sort as you want to call it, or examples of what some Cthulhu monsters look like, such as Hastor, or even some of the lesser ones, like the Star Vampires, and so on and so forth. And then it has a couple scenarios for you near the end, as well as references, which is actually kind of good because when you kind of go through this book, it's approximately about 400 or more pages. It can get pretty dicey if you don't have any quick references. So this book, as kind of like most other books of TTRPGs, does provide references such as a glossary, but also converting rules to 7th edition from other editions such as 5th, 6th, and so on and so forth. And then it also separates two types of equipment in the 1920s and modern era, which is good because you can play Call of Cthulhu in the current present day, or you can play Call of Cthulhu in the roaring 1920s. There's a weapons and there's a whole weapons table for that too. Not just the equipment, but weapons table that will separate that. The equipment is also for armory, like armor and other types of protective gear. And then you have two separate investigator sheets, one for the 1920s and one for modern era. I personally just use the 1920s sheet and say you're in the modern era or you're in the 1920s. Really, the only difference is one looks like it's made by a computer while one looks like it's hand-drawn. That's pretty much about it. Call of Cthulhu, the Keeper's Rulebook, is a must-buy if you are going to run Call of Cthulhu. Now, I have ran 7th edition Call of Cthulhu for at least a couple years now, and I very much do like it. I'm actually getting ready to run more of it in the near future as well, and I currently have a live group that I'm playing with. So, definitely Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium Games is a must-buy if you are into TTRPGs. I do recommend it, and I can't say much more good things about it because there is a lot of good things. Now, the downside is, if there is a downside, to me it's not a downside. I have grown to like the percentile system. Not everybody likes the number crunching of the percentile dice, but, it is kind of like, I guess if you want to call it, it is of personal acquired taste. For me, I do like it. I like sitting down sometimes and actually just using percentiles are kind of fun. You do use other forms of dice when using damage or taking insanity. This game also has a few other things that we will discuss, such as the attributes, but we will discuss that in the next book because the attributes are widely greater explained in the investigator's handbook. Alright, so I think that's everything I have at this time. Let's see on my to-do list if there's anything else I want to cover. And this is definitely worth the buy too. It is kind of pricey, but it is worth the buy and comes with some great, fantastic art. So that is everything I have at this time. I want to let everybody know, let everybody who tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in to my stream this morning. We will be having more streams in the future. Keep watching my Twitter page. It will be in my description of what I have coming up next. And I want to tell everybody to work hard, play hard, game hard. Game hard as always. Game on, everybody. My famous tabletop junkie salute. I want to wish everyone a great and wonderful day.